Liam had always been different from most people. He did not like crowded streets, noisy parties, or busy towns. Instead, he loved silence. He loved the feeling of being alone with nature, where the only sounds were birds singing, the wind rustling through the trees, or the distant roar of a waterfall. Hiking was not just a hobby for him. It was a way to breathe, a way to think, and a way to feel alive. One crisp morning, Liam was walking through the local market, passing old bookshops and small cafes that sold fresh bread and coffee. He stopped at a small stall covered in newspapers, each folded neatly in a pile. Something bright and unusual on one of the pages caught his eye. It was an old advertisement, barely noticeable, but it promised something remarkable. A cabin on the edge of a cliff was being sold for 50 cents. Only 50 cents. The small print explained that it had been abandoned for years, and that anyone buying it would take responsibility for its condition. Most people would have ignored it, thinking it was a joke or a scam. But Liam felt a spark of curiosity that he could not ignore. By noon, he had arranged to meet the man who was selling the cabin. The seller was an old man named Mr. Harris, who smiled in a quiet, mysterious way. "You know," he said, "this cabin has been empty for decades. Many tried to live here and gave up because it is not easy. But for someone who truly understands nature, it can be wonderful." Liam nodded. He liked the old man's words, and when the papers were signed, he handed over his 50 cents. It felt strange to own something so rare for such a small price. The journey to the cabin was long. Liam carried his backpack filled with clothes, food, and basic tools. The path led him through dense forests where sunlight danced through the branches, and through open fields where wildflowers grew in bright patches. Birds of all colors flew past him, and small animals peeked out from behind rocks and bushes. Liam felt a sense of peace he had not felt in a long time. Finally, the cabin appeared. It stood at the edge of a high cliff overlooking a wide valley below. The wooden walls were weathered, and the paint had almost completely worn away. The roof had several missing tiles, and the windows were covered in a thick layer of dust and grime. A rope swing hung from a tall tree nearby, its rope frayed but still strong. Despite its age, the cabin had a strange charm. Liam stepped closer and noticed the patterns of the wooden beams carved with care long ago. He unlocked the cabin door, which creaked loudly as it opened. Inside, dust covered the floor like a soft carpet, and cobwebs hung from the corners of the ceiling. Broken furniture lay scattered around. A wooden chair had one leg missing. A small table had scratches that told stories of the past, and a faded rug covered the floor in uneven patches. Liam took a deep breath. He had expected the cabin to be empty and old, but the smell of old wood and earth surprised him. It was both inviting and mysterious. As he explored the cabin, he noticed small details that made him wonder about its past. There was a bookshelf with old books that had yellowed pages, and on the mantelpiece a cracked clock was frozen at a strange time. Small paintings of mountains and forests hung crookedly on the walls. Liam felt as if he had stepped into a place where time had stopped. While walking across the floor, he noticed that one of the rugs did not lay flat. Curious, he lifted it and found a small trapdoor. It was covered in dust and cobwebs, and its edges were rough from years of neglect. Liam's heart began to beat faster. He had expected the cabin to be simple and empty, but this trapdoor suggested something hidden, something secret. He knelt down and pushed the trapdoor open. A ladder made of old wood led down into darkness. The smell of earth and stone reached his nose. Liam hesitated. Normally, he would have ignored such a discovery and gone back to cleaning the cabin, but curiosity had a strong grip on him. He could not resist the urge to know what was hidden beneath the cabin. He grabbed a flashlight from his backpack and began to climb down carefully. Each step creaked under his weight. The walls of the narrow passage were cold and damp, and small insects scuttled across the stones. Liam could feel the air getting cooler the deeper he went. Finally, he reached the bottom and shined his flashlight across the room. It was small, no more than a few meters in every direction, with walls made of stone. The floor was uneven, and a thick layer of dust covered everything. In the center of the room was an old wooden chest. Its metal hinges were rusty and the lid was covered in dirt. On the walls were strange symbols and drawings, some looking like maps, others like diagrams Liam could not understand. He had never seen anything like it. His hand shook as he reached for the chest. The wood was rough under his fingers, and the lid made a small noise as it opened. Inside, Liam found several old journals, their pages brittle but intact. The handwriting was careful, though some words were faded. He picked one up and read the first page. The journal belonged to a man named Harold, who had lived in the cabin many years ago. Harold wrote about his life in the cabin, his work in the forests, and strange lights he sometimes saw over the valley at night. The journal also spoke of hidden treasures and warnings. Harold wrote that greed could be dangerous, and that those who did not respect nature might never leave the cabin safely. Liam felt a chill. He had expected to find old papers and perhaps some forgotten belongings, but this journal hinted at something much more mysterious. He carefully took the journals back upstairs, placing them on the old table. Liam knew he had to read them more thoroughly. The cabin, once simple and abandoned, had suddenly become a place of mystery and adventure. He felt a mixture of fear and excitement. The journals hinted at secrets hidden for decades, perhaps even centuries, waiting for someone brave enough to discover them. Liam spent the rest of the afternoon cleaning the cabin. He swept the floor, wiped the dust from the furniture, and opened the windows to let sunlight in. Birds flew close to the cabin, chirping and exploring the new activity. The air smelled fresh, carrying the scent of pine from the nearby trees. Liam felt a strange connection to the place. It was not just a cabin. It was a bridge to the past, a place where stories waited to be discovered. As night fell, Liam lit a small lantern and sat by the window. He looked out over the valley, watching the sun dip behind the distant mountains. The cliff dropped sharply below him and the wind blew gently, carrying the sound of leaves and distant water. He opened one of Harold's journals and began to read more carefully. Each page revealed more about the man who had lived here, the challenges he had faced, and the strange experiences he had encountered. The more Liam read, the more he realized that the cabin was more than just a building. It was a keeper of memories, a silent witness to stories that had unfolded over many years. He felt a thrill of anticipation. What secrets did the hidden room truly hold? What was the treasure Harold had written about? Liam could feel that his quiet life of hiking was about to change. He decided to sleep in the cabin that night. The bed was old but still usable. He covered himself with a thin blanket and tried to imagine the lives of those who had come before him. The wind whistled around the cabin, and the trees outside swayed gently. Liam's mind was full of questions and curiosity. He did not know what awaited him, but he knew that he had taken the first step into a real adventure. Morning would bring more exploration. He planned to examine every corner of the cabin, study the journals more deeply, and perhaps, with courage, descend into the hidden room again. Liam felt alive in a way he had never felt before. The cabin, perched on the edge of the cliff, had become a gateway to mystery, history, and excitement. For the first time in his life, he felt that he was truly ready to discover something extraordinary. The next morning, Liam woke to the soft light of dawn spilling through the cabin's dusty windows. The wind whispered across the cliff outside, and birds sang cheerfully from nearby trees. He stretched, feeling excitement mixed with a touch of nervousness. Yesterday had been filled with discovery, and today promised even more. He picked up Harold's journals from the table and began to read carefully, page by page. Harold had written about life in the cabin, the long hikes he took into the surrounding forests, and the unusual phenomena he witnessed over the valley. Liam's curiosity grew as he read passages describing lights dancing across the cliffs at night, and strange melodic sounds that seemed to come from nowhere. Harold had called them the whispers of the wind, though he had suggested they were more than just sounds carried by nature. Liam wondered if anyone had ever investigated these mysteries before. One journal entry caught Liam's attention. Harold had mentioned a hidden compartment beneath the cabin. It was described as a small stone room that only a few people had ever seen. Inside, Harold had left notes and objects that he considered important, possibly valuable. The journal gave vague directions on how to reach it, mentioning a trapdoor and a ladder leading down. Liam's heart raced. He had already found the trapdoor yesterday, but he had not explored the room thoroughly. With careful steps, Liam moved to the center of the cabin, lifted the rug, and examined the trapdoor again. It had been slightly warped by the weather, but it was still sturdy enough to support his weight. He grabbed his flashlight and descended the creaking ladder, feeling the air grow cooler as he went deeper. His mind was full of questions. Why had Harold hidden this room? What exactly was inside? Liam had a mixture of excitement and caution. At the bottom, the small stone room looked different in the morning light filtering from above. Dust motes floated in the air, and the walls were covered with strange markings and symbols. Liam ran his fingers lightly over the rough stone. The symbols seemed like maps, letters, and numbers, though their meaning was unclear. He walked slowly around the room, careful not to disturb anything. The chest in the center looked old but solid. Its hinges creaked as he lifted the lid, revealing its contents once again. Inside the chest were more journals, old letters, and a few small boxes wrapped in cloth. Liam carefully lifted a journal and read the first entry aloud to himself. It was dated many years ago, and the handwriting was careful, almost elegant. Harold wrote about finding the stones and objects hidden in the cliffs and forests, and about the importance of understanding their purpose. He described them as tools to protect nature and those who lived in harmony with it. Harold had warned that anyone who sought the objects for selfish reasons might face dangers they could not predict. Liam placed the journal on the stone floor and opened one of the small boxes. Inside were several smooth stones that shone faintly in the dim light. They were not ordinary stones. They had a glow that seemed to pulse gently, almost as if they had a heartbeat of their own. Liam picked one up and felt a slight warmth spread through his fingers. He was amazed. The stones were beautiful and mysterious, but he felt an instinctive caution. Harold's warning echoed in his mind. He continued exploring the room. There were old tools, a small lantern, and a wooden key carved with strange patterns. Liam wondered what it could unlock. There were also folded papers with sketches of the valley, the cabin, and nearby forests. They looked like maps showing paths, hidden clearings, and places marked with small symbols. Harold had clearly documented everything carefully. Liam felt both respect and awe. This was more than a cabin. It was a record of a lifetime spent in observation and discovery. Suddenly, Liam heard a faint sound like a footstep above him. He froze. The cabin had seemed empty yesterday. Could someone else be inside? He waited, holding his flashlight tightly. The sound came again, softer this time. Liam climbed the ladder cautiously, listening for more noise. When he reached the top, he saw no one, but a window had been left slightly open. The wind might have moved something, he thought, calming himself. Yet the feeling of being watched lingered. Back in the cabin, Liam decided to study the journals more carefully. Each entry gave him more insight into Harold's life. Harold had been a man who loved solitude, but he had also been cautious. He documented the seasons, the animals, and even unusual weather patterns that no one else noticed. There were sketches of rare birds, descriptions of unusual plants, and notes about places in the valley that were beautiful but dangerous. Liam realized that Harold had lived fully, paying attention to everything around him, and had hidden treasures not just of objects, but of knowledge. Hours passed as Liam read and studied. The sun moved across the sky, casting shifting shadows through the cabin. The journals spoke of nights when the valley seemed alive with energy. Harold described seeing lights on the cliffs, hearing sounds in the wind, and feeling a presence he could not explain. Liam's imagination grew vivid. Could it be possible that the valley held secrets beyond what he could see? The thought thrilled him. By late afternoon, Liam decided it was time to explore outside. He carried one journal, his backpack, and a small notebook to take notes. The maps in Harold's sketches indicated a path along the cliff that led to a hidden clearing. Liam followed the trail carefully, stepping over rocks and roots. The wind blew strongly as he approached the edge of the cliff, but the view was breathtaking. The valley stretched far below, filled with green forests, streams, and distant mountains. Liam paused, letting the beauty of the place fill him with energy. As he followed Harold's directions, he noticed a small hollow in the cliff, partially hidden by bushes and rocks. It looked almost like it had been shaped by hand. Liam knelt and examined it closely. The hollow was just large enough to fit a small wooden box. His heart beat faster. Could this be the treasure Harold had written about? He reached in carefully and pulled out a box covered in dust. It was heavier than it looked, and the wood was warm from the sun. Opening the box, Liam found several smooth, glowing stones similar to those in the chest below. They shimmered in the sunlight, catching his eye with gentle flashes of color. He felt a strange energy when he touched them, like a subtle vibration in his fingers. These were not ordinary stones. Liam carefully placed them back in the box. Harold's warnings came to mind. The stones were not toys or treasures to show off. They were meant for those who understood their purpose. As Liam returned to the cabin, he felt a mix of excitement and responsibility. He had discovered something remarkable, but he also understood the need for care. These stones were part of a larger mystery, a secret Harold had protected for decades. Liam realized that his life had changed. The cabin was no longer just a quiet place for hiking and solitude. It had become a gateway to adventure, knowledge, and perhaps danger. That evening, Liam sat by the window looking at the valley as the sun set. The journals lay open on the table, and the glow from the lantern cast shadows across the room. He thought about the discoveries he had made, the hidden room and the stones. He wondered about the lights and sounds Harold had described. Liam felt a strong sense of purpose. He would study the journals carefully, learn from Harold's experiences, and explore the valley responsibly. This cabin had given him more than a place to rest. It had given him a connection to history and a path toward something extraordinary. Night fell quietly, and Liam prepared to sleep. He placed the journals on a shelf and covered the stones carefully, keeping them in the chest for safety. The wind blew gently and the cabin seemed to breathe with life. Liam closed his eyes, feeling anticipation for the next day. Tomorrow he would explore more of the valley, follow the maps, and perhaps uncover more secrets Harold had left behind. The adventure had only just begun, and Liam felt ready to meet whatever challenges awaited him. The cabin on the cliff, abandoned for decades, now held a new guardian. Liam was no longer just a hiker. He was a seeker of secrets, a protector of the treasures hidden in nature. As he drifted to sleep, he could almost feel the presence of Harold, watching over the cabin and its new occupant, guiding him toward discoveries yet to come. The following morning, Liam woke with a sense of purpose. The cabin was quiet, except for the gentle wind brushing the trees outside. He had spent the previous day exploring the hidden room and the hollow in the cliff, and his mind was filled with questions. He wanted to understand the meaning of the glowing stones and the notes Harold had left behind. The adventure he had stumbled upon was becoming more than curiosity. It was a journey of discovery. After a quick breakfast, Liam opened Harold's journals and read more carefully. One entry described a hidden path that led to a cave in the cliffs, a place where Harold claimed the valley's most important secret had been kept. According to Harold, the path was dangerous, narrow, and sometimes covered by rocks and debris. Only someone cautious and determined could reach the cave safely. Liam studied the maps drawn in the journal. Every line and marking suggested careful observation. Harold had documented every turn, every tree, and even certain rocks that could be used as markers. Liam's curiosity pushed him forward. He packed his bag with essentials: water, some food, his flashlight, gloves, and a small notebook to record everything. He carried the journal in a protective cover, making sure it would not tear or get wet. Liam stepped outside, feeling the morning sun on his face. The valley stretched wide and green below, and the wind carried the faint scent of pine and wildflowers. He followed the path indicated in the journal, moving carefully along the edge of the cliff. The rocks beneath his feet were uneven, and the path sometimes disappeared under small shrubs or fallen branches. After nearly 2 hours of careful walking, Liam reached the section of the cliff marked by Harold as the entrance to the hidden cave. The entrance was almost invisible, a narrow gap between two massive boulders. Liam knelt and examined it closely. He noticed small carvings in the rock that matched symbols in the journal. These marks were like Harold's signature, confirming that this was the correct location. Liam took a deep breath and crawled inside. The air was cooler and damp, and the faint sound of dripping water echoed from deep within the cave. The passage led him into a small chamber, about twice the size of the hidden room under the cabin. The walls were smooth stone, but they glowed faintly in certain spots, reflecting what Liam realized were mineral deposits. In the center of the chamber lay a stone pedestal, and upon it rested a small wooden box similar to the ones he had found in the hollow outside. Liam approached slowly, feeling a mixture of excitement and caution. He knew that Harold had written about the importance of handling the objects carefully. Opening the box, Liam discovered several more glowing stones. These stones were larger and shone with a soft inner light that seemed almost alive. He picked one up and felt a strange warmth in his hand, like a gentle pulse. Liam could not explain it, but it was as if the stones were responding to his presence. He carefully placed a few in his backpack, making sure they were secure while leaving the others on the pedestal. According to Harold's notes, removing too many stones at once could disturb the balance of the area. While examining the chamber, Liam noticed additional carvings on the walls. They looked like instructions, diagrams, and maps combined. One section of the wall contained a small recess, just large enough to hold another box or object. Liam realized that Harold had left more than just stones. He had left clues and guidance for anyone brave enough to explore further. The cave was not only a hiding place but also a teaching space. Each object and marking had a purpose. Suddenly, a faint sound caught Liam's attention. It was soft at first, almost like a whisper carried on the wind. He paused, listening carefully. The sound seemed to come from deeper within the cave. His curiosity overcame his caution. Liam decided to follow the sound, moving carefully through the narrow passages. The walls were damp and cold, and the ground was uneven. Every step required concentration, but Liam felt compelled to continue. He could not explain why, but it felt important to understand the cave fully. After several minutes, the passage opened into a slightly larger chamber. The air smelled of earth and stone, and the walls reflected the soft glow of the minerals. In the corner of the chamber, Liam saw something extraordinary. A cluster of crystals jutted out of the ground, radiating a faint light. Their glow illuminated the walls, revealing patterns and symbols he had not seen before. Liam approached the crystals carefully, feeling a strange energy in the air. It was not frightening, but it was powerful, as if the cave itself was alive. He reached out to touch one of the crystals lightly. A sudden warmth spread through his hand, and he felt a tingling sensation travel up his arm. Liam pulled back, astonished. The crystals were not just beautiful. They seemed to hold energy, almost like a connection to the world around them. He knelt to examine the base of the crystal cluster and noticed another small compartment hidden in the stone. Carefully, he opened it to find a folded piece of parchment. The parchment was old, but the writing was clear. It contained instructions and guidance written in Harold's careful hand. It explained the purpose of the stones and crystals, how they were connected to the valley, and how they could help those who respected nature. Harold had left this knowledge for someone worthy, someone who would not exploit it but use it wisely. Liam's excitement grew. He realized he had stumbled upon something remarkable, a secret preserved for generations. As Liam studied the parchment, he became aware of another sound. This time it was not soft or distant. It was the sound of footsteps echoing through the cave. Liam froze. His heart beat faster. The cave was remote and difficult to reach. Who could possibly be here? He grabbed his flashlight and shone it toward the sound. To his relief, he saw no one, but the echoes continued, bouncing off the walls. Liam realized it was probably the natural acoustics of the cave, but it made his adventure feel even more real. After spending several hours exploring the cave and studying the crystals, Liam returned to the main chamber. He carefully placed the parchment and a few stones back on the pedestal. According to Harold's notes, the cave's balance must be maintained. Removing too many objects or disturbing the arrangement could disrupt the energy of the place. Liam understood the importance of responsibility. This was not a treasure to take lightly. By late afternoon, Liam decided to head back to the cabin. The path along the cliff was more treacherous in the fading light, but he moved carefully, guided by Harold's maps. When he reached the cabin, he felt a sense of accomplishment and awe. He had uncovered something extraordinary, something that required respect, patience, and care. The cabin, the hollow, and the cave were all connected, forming a hidden network of secrets that had waited decades for someone to find them. That evening, Liam sat by the lantern, recording everything he had discovered in his notebook. He wrote about the cave, the glowing crystals, the small wooden box, and the instructions left by Harold. He described the energy he had felt, the glow of the stones, and the strange but gentle warmth they produced. Liam realized that the adventure was just beginning. He had uncovered mysteries that had been hidden for decades, but there were still many questions. As night fell, the wind blew through the trees around the cabin. Liam gazed out at the valley below, feeling the quiet power of the place. The cliffs, forests, and rivers seemed alive, and he understood why Harold had spent so many years studying and protecting them. Liam's mind was full of plans. He wanted to explore more, learn from the journals, and uncover the remaining secrets of the cliff and its hidden treasures. Liam prepared for sleep. placing the journals on the table and the stones safely in the chest. The cabin was quiet, but the energy of the day lingered. He could almost feel the presence of Harold guiding him, encouraging him to continue the journey. Liam closed his eyes, knowing that the discoveries of the day had changed everything. He was no longer just a hiker seeking solitude. He was a seeker of secrets, a protector of the mysteries hidden in the valley, and a participant in a story that had begun long before he arrived. The cliff cabin, abandoned for decades, was alive with history and knowledge. Liam felt a connection to the past and a sense of responsibility for the future. He knew that tomorrow would bring more discoveries, more mysteries, and more challenges. But he was ready. The adventure that had begun with a 50-cent purchase had grown into something extraordinary, and Liam felt alive with the promise of what was yet to come. The morning sun shone brightly over the cliff, illuminating the cabin and the valley below. Liam woke early, feeling both excitement and a hint of nervousness. Yesterday he had explored the cave and learned more about Harold's hidden treasures. The glowing stones and crystals had shown him that the valley held secrets far beyond ordinary understanding. Today, he felt a strong urge to study the journals again and plan his next expedition along the cliff paths. After breakfast, Liam arranged the journals neatly on the table. The sunlight streaming through the windows made the pages glow softly. He began reading entries he had not yet explored. Harold had written about visitors who had come and gone, rare travelers who had stumbled upon the cabin but left without understanding its mysteries. Some had feared the cliffs and abandoned the area. Others had been curious but lacked patience or respect for the valley. Harold's words carried a warning. Only someone careful, honest, and respectful could truly uncover the secrets of the cliff and the cave. As Liam read, he heard a faint sound outside. At first he ignored it, thinking it was the wind rustling the trees. But the sound grew closer, deliberate and distinct. It was the sound of footsteps, slow and steady, approaching the cabin. Liam's heart began to race. He had expected solitude, not visitors. He stood quietly listening. The footsteps stopped near the cabin door. Liam cautiously moved toward the entrance, holding his journal close to his chest. The door opened slowly, and a man stepped inside. He was old, with a long gray beard and bright, alert eyes. His clothes were simple but sturdy, suitable for walking in the forests and cliffs. Liam took a deep breath, unsure whether to greet him or step back. The man smiled warmly. "Good morning," the visitor said calmly. "I see you have discovered the cabin and its secrets." Liam blinked. "Who are you?" he asked, trying to hide his surprise. The man's eyes twinkled. "I am a guardian," he replied. "I have been entrusted with the protection of this valley and the treasures it holds. Few people come here, and fewer still are ready to understand the purpose of these stones and crystals. You are one of the rare few who have the patience and respect to seek knowledge without selfishness." Liam felt a mixture of awe and confusion. A guardian? He had expected journals, stones, and caves, but not a person who watched over them. I only wanted to explore," Liam said softly. "I did not expect to find anything so important." "I did not know there was someone like you." The guardian nodded. "Many do not understand," he said. "They see the stones as treasures to be taken or sold. But these objects are not ordinary. They are connected to the valley, to nature, and to the harmony of this place. Harold knew that, and he left instructions for someone worthy. I see that you are sincere, and that is why I am here." Liam felt a mixture of relief and excitement. He had discovered something extraordinary, but now he realized that understanding it fully required guidance. The guardian continued, explaining more about the stones and crystals. Each one had a purpose. Some were connected to the energy of the forests, helping the trees grow and the animals thrive. Others were linked to the cliffs and streams, maintaining balance in the ecosystem. The glowing stones Liam had found were not just beautiful. They were instruments of protection and harmony. "The stones respond to respect and understanding," the guardian said. "They will not harm you, but they will react if misused. That is why Harold left instructions. He wanted someone to learn their purpose before taking action." Liam listened carefully. Every word made sense, yet it filled him with even more questions. "How do I know I'm ready?" he asked. "What should I do with them?" The guardian smiled. "You have already shown your readiness by respecting the instructions, by taking only what is necessary, and by seeking knowledge rather than wealth. The next step is learning. Study the journals, Explore the valley and understand the connection between the stones, the cliffs, and the life that thrives here. Only then will you know the purpose of your discoveries. Liam nodded slowly. He felt a deep sense of responsibility. This was no longer about curiosity or adventure alone. It was about stewardship, learning, and protecting something precious. He thought of the glowing crystals in the cave, the stones in the hollow, and the maps and journals Harold had left behind. Each piece of the puzzle had meaning. He would need time, patience, and care to understand it all. The Guardian continued to explain the valley's secrets. He described the caves, the hidden paths, and the small clearings where rare plants grew. Some of these places were dangerous to enter, he said, but all of them held lessons for those willing to learn. Liam realized that Harold's work had been much more than keeping treasure. It was about observing, recording, and protecting the natural world. The stones were part of that protection, symbols of balance and care. After several hours of conversation, the Guardian grew quiet. He looked around the cabin and then at Liam. "I must leave soon," he said. "But remember this. The stones, the crystals, and the valley itself will guide you if you remain respectful. You are part of this legacy now, Liam. Treat it with care and you will discover wonders beyond imagination." Before Liam could respond, the Guardian turned and left the cabin. He moved with surprising agility for someone his age, disappearing into the forest and cliffs with the wind and shadows. Liam stood silently, absorbing what had happened. The cabin felt different now. It was no longer just a quiet retreat. It was a place of learning, of responsibility, and of connection to something greater. For the rest of the day, Liam studied the journals more carefully. He reread Harold's entries, examined the stones and crystals, and thought about the Guardian's words. Each detail took on new significance. The stones were not prizes to be claimed. They were instruments of understanding and harmony. Liam felt a sense of purpose he had never experienced before. He realized that the 50-cent cabin had given him much more than shelter. It had given him a mission. As evening approached, Liam decided to explore the valley near the cabin. He wanted to see the places described in the journals, to walk the paths Harold had mapped, and to observe the land for himself. The cliffs were high, the forest dense, and the stream sparkling with sunlight. Every step filled him with wonder. He noticed birds nesting, deer drinking from the streams, and plants growing in unexpected places. Everything seemed alive, vibrant, and connected. While walking along a narrow path, Liam discovered a small clearing he had not noticed before. It was hidden behind thick bushes and rocks, and the sunlight fell gently across the grass. In the center of the clearing was a stone circle, carefully arranged. Liam remembered Harold's instructions and the Guardian's words. This place was sacred, a site where the balance of the valley was maintained. He approached respectfully, examining the stones without touching them unnecessarily. Suddenly, a gentle breeze passed through the clearing, carrying a soft sound, almost like a melody. Liam paused, listening. The sound was not frightening. It was soothing, calming, and almost magical. He realized that this was part of the valley's energy, a subtle signal that he was in the right place following Harold's legacy. Liam felt a connection to everything around him, the trees, the rocks, the streams, and even the wind. Returning to the cabin, Liam felt tired but fulfilled. The day had been full of discoveries, and he had begun to understand the importance of respect, patience, and observation. He placed the stones back in the hollow, returned the journals to the shelf, and prepared for sleep. The cabin felt warmer, safer, and alive with history and knowledge. As he lay down that night, Liam thought about the Guardian and Harold. He realized that he was not alone in this journey. The valley, the stones, and the legacy of those who had come before were guiding him. He felt ready for the challenges ahead, knowing that the path of discovery required care, respect, and courage. The cliff cabin, once abandoned and quiet, had transformed into a place of learning, mystery, and responsibility. Liam knew that tomorrow would bring new adventures, more discoveries, and perhaps unexpected encounters. But he was ready. He had been chosen, in a sense, to understand the secrets of the valley, to protect its treasures, and to continue the legacy left by Harold and watched over by the Guardian. The wind blew gently through the trees outside, carrying the faint scent of pine and flowers. The stars began to appear in the sky above the cliffs, and Liam closed his eyes, feeling the quiet strength of the valley around him. He was no longer just a hiker or a visitor. He was a participant in something extraordinary, a protector of the secrets hidden in the cliffs and forests, and a seeker of knowledge that would guide him through the days to come. The morning light bathed the cliff cabin in a warm glow. Liam awoke feeling a mixture of anticipation and determination. The days he had spent exploring the cabin, the hidden room, and the cave had taught him patience, respect, and wonder. Yet he knew the true test of his understanding had not yet come. The stones, the crystals, and the valley itself were waiting for him to make a choice that would define his connection to the secrets he had uncovered. Liam began his morning by reviewing Harold's journals one final time. Each page seemed to speak to him more clearly now. Harold had written not only about the hidden stones in the cave, but also about the responsibility that came with discovery. The journals emphasized that the valley's harmony depended on the care of those who understood its secrets. The glowing stones were not just objects to admire. They were instruments of balance, connected to the life of the cliffs, the forests, and the streams below. After breakfast, Liam gathered his notebook, the journals, and a few small tools he might need. He decided to return to the cave and the crystal chamber to observe the stones one last time. The journey along the cliff path was familiar now, but the excitement of what awaited filled him with energy. Every rock, every tree, and every sound in the forest seemed alive, as if they were guiding him toward the chamber. Reaching the cave, Liam paused at the entrance. The narrow gap between the rocks seemed smaller than he remembered, but the sunlight glinting off the stones inside made it welcoming. He carefully crawled through and entered the main chamber. The crystals glowed faintly, illuminating the walls and casting shimmering patterns across the floor. Liam's breath caught in his throat. The beauty of the chamber, combined with the quiet power he felt from the crystals, made the moment extraordinary. He approached the stone pedestal in the center of the chamber. The wooden box sat there, filled with glowing stones that pulsed softly with warmth. Liam felt the energy radiating from them, gentle yet alive. He picked one up and held it in his hand. It was heavier than he expected,